The
Well,
brighter side, the campaign side.
oh yeah, yeah. Well, now that we've got that out of our systems, we can kind of introduce ourselves. I am recording now, and
Alrighty.
I'm just gonna go ahead. I'm gonna introduce myself. I am Malice. I am the server administrator of the TTS Warhammer 40k and the admin for the r/TTS Warhammer 40k. That's what I'm kind of formally introducing myself as now, just the admin guy. Um, I would introduce my companion throughout this. This is Mothman Zach. And he joins us.
Glad to be here.
He joins us today
Really?
for some really good talks. You guys are gonna have to bear with me. I'm not. It's been a long time since I've done live streams. I am.
That's all right.
It's been a long time, but if you guys are hearing this, you guys are getting in on the exclusive podcast here for the Cruxcast stuff, and welcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm glad to be here. As Malice said, I am Mossman Zach. I've been a part of the community since probably 2017-ish, give or take. I'm guessing I came in around 8th edition, Kill Team, the original, or not really original Kill Team, it would have been 3rd edition, I guess. That was my first Kill Team. Came out shortly after 8th edition. That inspired me to get into the narrative side because I had some cool ideas for narrative stuff, and I ended up making a narrative campaign called Planet of Blackstone. I think it was called something along those lines.
It was
Yeah.
Planet Blackstone. Yeah. It wasn't Blackstone Fortress.
Yeah, that was another IP that made some money. May have heard of that.
Oh well,
The Planet of Blackstone.
I mean, you were here for. Hey, you don't remember Heralds of Ruin? It was like the community kind of homebrew, or not a word I was about to say, but kill team. It was a kind of vastly improved. Well, it was considered vastly improved and more balanced and stuff, and it had like a bunch of more codexes in there. And I guess, well, what is the Grimdark Future? What is that? That's like a community, like way to play 40k, like its own kind of like rule system. I would have to say that it's pretty much like that.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I'm kind of blowing you away with a little bit of this info, but I mean, I don't know this. I don't know the specifics. Like, I briefly heard of it. Like, there's something out there called Grimdark Future, and like it features like some Age of Sigmar sequencing in it. It sounds kind of fun.
Yeah. There's been a number of like homebrew game systems that have been pretty cool. One of them that was actually introduced to me a while back is called Kill Cry, which takes the mechanics of Warcry and applies it to 40k to create a different kind of tactical combat game, which, funny enough, actually has a lot of features that are in the new Kill Team edition.
So. Oh, really? So we're going to be able to see some of that stuff. Well,
yeah, and that actually, I mean, the fact that a new Kill Team has come out now, which is what really got me into the idea of creating homebrews and narrative campaigns that link together. It kind of fits perfect that this new Kill Team has come out now, and there's been mixed reviews on it, but I've played a few games of it so far, and I really like this new system. I may not be in the majority on it, but I really truly think it sets it apart enough to make the game feel unique instead of just Warhammer Light. And at least the games I've played so far have and the ones I've seen for that matter, have gone the full 4 battle rounds, or they call them turning points in the new kill team. But I mean, it's always gone down to the wire. I've maybe seen one game that was a blowout in the first battle round.
So it just feels like
So
vastly more balanced.
balanced, I would say. Yeah.
Perfectly balanced. Well, you know,
Yeah.
it's nice to see that they dropped an update for it because, you know, and I never was a really big Kill Team player. Like, I really appreciated Kill Team as a affordable way for people to play small games of 40K and, like, get stuck in. Like, I always appreciated that part. I played a few games of it. I had fun with it. It was nice. It was nice to have those small little games. But then I heard that they stopped like giving updates for it, or after they dropped an update for elites, it was like stuck in a really bad place.
Yeah, they did, like, because they kept releasing new models, but would never give anyone data cards for them.
Okay.
And then they did like one brief, like, flash in the pan update. I mean, it was like just a few months ago, when Ninth Edition came out. You know, because they had that new box set, starting box, and all these new models, they wanted to make sure players could use them in kill teams, so they released an update for that. And it, because of COVID and everything, it got delayed, so it didn't launch with Ninth Edition. That's why it only came out, like, I want to say 3 months ago.
Okay.
Which is kind of sucky to release an
Yeah.
expansion when you have a whole new edition that makes it obsolete just a couple months later.
You know, we have to ask ourselves just like how impactful has COVID been on some of these releases, because you keep hearing about like delays and delays and delays. Does that mean that we're playing like almost a different edition than what was intended? Like, I don't. It's hard to speculate on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I know that some of the stuff came out clumped together more so than they intended, because they were wanting to do like one codex a month, and instead we were getting 2 to 4 sometimes in a single month. And so, you know, as soon as one or two would hit the the meta, that meta would shift almost immediately because another codex came out.
Right.
Now, kind of a unfortunate and fortunate thing is that this stuff happened when there wasn't tournaments going on anyway. On the one hand, it made it hard to gauge what was too powerful and what wasn't. But on the other hand, you know, if there had been tournaments going on when we were getting 4 codexes dropped every month, I mean, that would have been pandemonium to try to sort through everything. Just in the whole meta.
I mean, yes.
I can see positives too, but I think overall it's kind of better to have a consistent rate. You know, whether, I mean, if you're gonna make 4 codexes the consistent rate, that's fine. You know, because then it's, you know, eventually mellows out into its own thing. But at some point, that rate, if it's, you know, okay, 4 of them now. Now next month, here's 1. Next month, we got nothing. Next month, 4 more.
Yeah,
you know, it kind of goes all over the place. You know, on how much you need to change your army up.
That's true. That's true. So, ladies and gentlemen,
I guess
if you guys are watching us right now, just know that this is going to be kind of a new podcast series that we're going to be going over. Sorry to change the topic on you, Moth, but I just wanted to go over kind of like the overview of what we're talking today. We're going to be talking about some of the story stuff just a little bit, nothing too much, no spoilers allowed. But you know, over time we will open more, if that makes sense. Like, you know, as things kind of progress, we will talk more and more about story elements that people might be interested in. And we'll talk a little bit about the setting as well for where our campaign is set. Um, we're gonna do a little bit of going over basics, and I'm gonna really let you drive on that topic there because we don't want to spoil too much. Like we have a very rough idea as to where we're heading, but I'm gonna leave Moth to decide what we get out of
Lots
that.
of ideas. We got lots of ideas. They just have to, settle in to decide what's going to work and what needs to be adapted to make it work.
That's true. Yeah. We're also going to be talking a bit about something that I actually wanted to talk about is like our testing phase and the maps. Like those are two things that I really wanted to talk about today. And then I wanted to get a little bit more into some of the narrative histories of you, Moth. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the previous things that you worked on. And then we're going to top this all off with goals of our campaign. So
Sounds good to me.
That. A lot of stuff here. So let's get into the main story.
All right. Well, to me, it seems that every story has to have a good, inciting incident. Something that, that happens that draws all of our characters together, whether it be in Star Wars, you have, droids crash landing on a planet with a top secret mission. Jaws, you got a who goes out for a swim and ends up becoming lunch. You gotta have that initial grab. So when I came on board here, there's been stories that have been tossed around, ideas and everything, and the one that immediately jumped out to me that we're going with is the idea of a psychic scream that echoes across the universe, and that this is psychic abilities in the grimdark future, can be quite strong, but universe spanning is rare. Even the Emperor himself has to have his golden throne to shine his holy light across the Imperium. And the fact that there's something out there that can send out a psychic beacon like that everywhere to perceptive psychers is something that is going to draw the interest of almost everyone. For the Imperium, it's about finding out, what to do this, how could it maybe be used to help reinforce their own technology to aid the Emperor's, of course, only certain factions are aware that that might be the reason they're looking for it. That's right. And speaking of Nurgle, no, the Chaos also has, ideas of their own to maybe create a counter to the Imperium's beacon of the Emperor. And then you also have the Eldari, who may have some more in-depth knowledge of what could make such a psychic screen. And then, these are just the players who have, the obvious vested interests that have suddenly drawn their attention towards the direction of the screen. You also have tendrils of hive fleets that are, changing course to head toward it. You have raw energies building that are doing just the same and going one direction, gung ho, and then all of a sudden it's no, wait, lads, this way. And it also happens to be near the neck of the woods of the Tau, who the Tau have always had a standoffish relationship with psychic forces because they don't really have much of an interest in it. But given that this is popping up near their neck of the woods and bringing everybody to their doorstep, they're going to be wanting to pay close attention. So, and I should mention that this psychic stream has seemed to have originated from a system that was thought long lost to the warp when suddenly the entire universe cracked down the middle.
Oh
So
yeah.
all of a sudden, it was folded in, disappeared, written off. All of a sudden, it's back. There's warp energies around it, but not, it's not in itself enveloped. And that brings us to the staging ground to our little story, where one such planet is in the system that has reemerged with a psychic stream. And that is, I believe we're calling it Cerulean. Is that correct?
Planet Cerula. Is that how we pronounce?
Cerula. There we go.
Cerula.
Again, these are not names that are set in stone. But Cerula is the current name that we're going with as of this recording.
Who even made that name? I don't even know. I don't even know who made that name. But it was made.
Cerula. It was made. It's being used. There we go. So this is on the surface, it's an ice planet that at one point before disappearing had been used by the Imperium as a prison mining colony. And so some of the worst of the worst throughout numerous habs were shipped off there if they weren't going to be executed immediately. And they were sent to spend the rest of their lives and any offspring they may have lives mining on this completely ice encrusted ball in the middle of the universe. And the ground is incredibly rich with very obscure compounds and chemicals and elements. And part of the reason for this is that millennia ago, before the Imperium arrived there, this planet was a very dense jungle world. A world where fungus and plant life just ran amok and evolved predatory type behaviors. And something happened. We'll discover what may have happened, perhaps during the course of the campaign, but
Maybe.
it was flash frozen. And as a result, the atmosphere, which was incredibly dense anyway, grows into this type of honeycombed ice structure that is just a sphere around the planet. And if you're on the surface, you can enter this cave-like system and go through, numerous layers of caves and tunnels that seem endless. But if you reach down far enough, you're going to reach a center of the world that has somehow still thrived. Through magma, geothermal pockets, and whatnot, it's become a endless night illuminated by magma, and in which the life forms have continued to evolve into other forms of fungus and spores and other nasty plant life. And so players are going to be able to explore each of these three areas throughout the campaign. And it's going to lead into some of the workings of the mystery of the psychic stream that initiated all this. And I think we have some cool stuff lined up to really reflect how these environments are going to play. And this is just 3 environments on one planet. The game plan is to have more planets, of course, as we go on down the line. But I think one of the things we want to do with this campaign is really enrich the environment, not just on the actual tabletop, but in the lore, to try and create something that players can, really get vested in terms of knowing what each location is, how they can impact it, and how it can impact their own stories that they make up along the way.
Okay, so when you say like enriching the environment, what, how does that manifest itself in a narrative campaign like this?
Well, if you don't mind me going into some of the mechanics that we're working on with this, do you mind?
Yeah, no, let's go. Let's give them a
All right.
sample.
All right. Well, the idea is that players are going to be able to play one of two games when they start this campaign. They can do both or just one. Doesn't matter. You have an advantage if you play both slightly, and that uh, if you well first I should say the games are Warhammer 40K and then the new Kill Team. And if say you win a match in 40K, then your next match in Kill Team is going to start off with an additional command point, and vice versa. And this will be, we'll have more details on how that exact mechanic works when we are at launch. But so right off the bat, you have the actions of your games influencing the actions of future games, and players will build a base of operations, which is actually part of the new Kill Team's rule system, but we are expanding it to apply that to encompass Warhammer as well. So, for instance, if you are going to build an engineering bay, in Kill Team, that means that if you have an engineering bay, you can set up an additional barricade during the setup sequence. But in our game, if you in 40K, if you have it as well, you can select one terrain feature within 9 inches of your deployment zone until the end of the battle. If that feature has the light cover trait, then it also gains heavy cover and defensible. If it already has those traits, it also gains dense cover. So, you'll be able to shape the battlefield a bit based on what you invest into your own base, which will have an actual physical location on the map of each planet. Now, we're only starting with the one planet, keep in mind, so you're going to have one tile you select that is going to be where you hang your hat, so to speak. And as players play the game, you're going to have like any game, you earn victory points throughout the game. Well, we're going to have special story-driven missions, 4 of them every 2 weeks that players can pick and choose as they want to participate in. And for every victory point you earn during that match, you earn a corresponding narrative point. Now, what that means is that the actual score you have in the game and how well you do is going to have a narrative impact on yourself and on the planet itself as well. Because these narrative points can be used to place in votes or bets or however you want to word it on different outcomes. So you'll have a narrative question at the same time that these battles are being fought. So, an example being, this isn't in the actual story, this is just an example. Say in a story, an alien artifact is discovered that's sending out a signal. Well, the 4 missions might have to be about gaining control of the area, gaining control of the artifact, that kind of stuff. And the victory points that you earn can be spent afterwards to invest in one of 4 possible answers to how that's going to progress. So, like, the question might say, does your faction A secure the area and let the beacon broadcast continually? Or B, does it want the broadcast end so your faction tries to destroy the device? C, you decide that the device shouldn't broadcast, but you want to take the parts back for study, and so on. And you'll invest these points along with other factions doing the same thing. And the answer that gets the most votes is the answer that is going to happen. That's how the story is going to progress. And then the following, what we're calling chapters, which are two-week periods. So it's like, chapters of a book, chapters of our campaign. The next chapter begins with the effects of that choice being felt. So, like, okay, the winning faction uh, decided that the answer should be that they secured the area and left the beacon running. Well, now this beacon has drawn the attention of the Tyranids, and another Hive fleet has come in, started laying, spores across the planet. As a result, uh, players that are of the Tyranid faction get, this bonus in their next game for the next 2 weeks, while players that are of this faction get this penalty. At the same time, you're also going to have different ranks of control, because overall, the most points that your faction has says how much of a control they have on the planet. So there's also going to be stuff that happens to people that are in the most control and people that have the least amount of control. So it kind of has two dynamics to it, where you're playing to try to influence the story, and you're also trying to play to get ahead to control more territory on the planet. And controlling more territory on the planet might give you some buffs, but on the flip side, if you're the top dog on the planet, might draw the unwanted attention of other hostile forces, which is actually another mechanic we're working on, which is the idea that you have the 7 factions that people are familiar with of Imperium, Tal, Tyranids, Orcs, and so on. But every planet is also going to have an 8th faction, which is the locals, basically, whether it be plants, animals, natural disasters, what have you. And they're not going to be playable, but at the same time, they're going to be, those locals or local forces are going to be competing as well to try and reclaim what's that planet. And again, it doesn't have to actually be a sentient being. It could be earthquakes. It could be monsoons, you know.
It
So
could
there's a
be
number of
local
factors.
orcs. Orcs that just are savage. Don't belong to any band. That happens, right?
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, and the other interesting thing with the dynamic I wanted to bring up is that you notice I said that the player wins the match and gets the victory points, which are equal to narrative points, and they can spend that on any solution they want. What that means is that you can play for a faction team, but your faction may have ulterior motives. Like if you're Dark Angels, maybe there's a reason that you want that device to keep running. So you can cast your vote for that solution, even though it may not seem like what the Imperium would want. You can vote for the answer that's going to fit your narrative. So I think that's a nice way of encouraging people to build their crusade force or their kill team to fit the story that they're wanting to tell themselves. Because while Crux Solaris is 50%, the story, overall narrative that affects everyone, we want players to be able to build their own stories as well. And so I'm hoping we can accomplish that. I think we will.
I think that we will. There's been some discussions, but yeah, I think that there's going to be enough of that fitted. But I think it's very interesting, though, that players can actually bid on different outcomes depending on what's going on. I think not a lot of people might be super engaged, to the point where they might actually want to to be bidding on outcomes, but it adds a definite
Yeah,
nice.
it's there for people that want to do it. Kind of my view on making any narrative campaign is you make it the bare bones easy enough that anyone that wants to play can play, even if they just want to play for fun. I mean, everybody's playing for fun, but they just want to relax, do a couple of games here and there. If you want to do that, that's perfectly fine. You can play it with everybody else and not interrupt anything. You know.
Yeah.
And if you want to go gung ho and create a really unique story for your warband, and you want to use all the tools that we have at the disposal, then they're there for you. We're here to help you create the best story we can and create an overflowing narrative that brings numerous players and their stories all together into one interwoven grimdark future.
Yeah. I think it's going to be interesting, and with the testing phase and things like that we have in motion, we're really going to see where people sit on things. And so, like, if there's something that's going to be blatantly overpowered, or something that was missed, or not fun, or whatever, insert reason for said mechanic or idea to not work, we'll be able to see that, which is actually,
and that's a big part of it. I think is because we may have ideas of what we think makes like the best narrative campaign ever, but that may not gel with what somebody else thinks or what the majority think. So that's why we got playtesting, to see what ideas has on what they think works best. We can all we can compare it, see what works, what doesn't, compromise where we need to, and try to make something better out of everyone's ideas.
I think that's a very, that's actually what's been really occurring here, because as everybody kind of knows, they've been able to access some of the maps. If you're hearing this now, then you're probably going to have the next set of maps available for you ahead of everyone. But one incredibly awesome thing that I've, what we put together is this sort of process of how we're dealing with the feedback and how we collect it. Like, we're channeling everybody's thoughts. We're channeling people's kind of the views. We're factoring in things. We're weighting things. Like, we have spreadsheets of what people think, and we're taking that information.
Oh boy, do we!
Yeah, and that's the kind of, I think that's probably one of the more important things that I kind of didn't really foresee starting this, but has definitely become important for me, is what people think. Like, just seeing what people think about what should be included with the rules and what is a little too much. The map stuff that we're working on is kind of being refined over time, where we're dropping an update for the map, and the map has some changes to it, some movement in the terrain, some adjustments in the keywords, things of that nature. And then we just push it out and we say, hey guys, test this out and let us know what you think. And we give you guys like the ability to share exactly what you feel, in the form of like, if you want to give us a paragraph as to like, why the map feels good or why the map doesn't feel good, like, we will account for that. We're like taking that part of it and just reviewing what everyone is saying. And then the rating, you rate the map, you rate like all sorts of elements on the map, like if I forget the exact parameters, but it gets pretty in depth. We ask you pretty much all the questions we need to ask you to get an idea of how you feel on a map, and then we take that, pass it over, and then we have the spreadsheet calculate everything. It's crazy. It takes all the expressions, all the data, all the cells, all that stuff, and then it calculates it, and then it throws it to us in a more readable, legible way to see what maps are doing good and what maps are like obviously not working out. And that's just
and then we say praise to the Omnisaya, and then we repeat the process.
Right. I personally think that, you know, if one thing that our campaign is gonna have, it's gonna probably have like just one of the best collections of maps to play Warhammer 40K on.
Yeah, we have some really talented people working on this, and they're doing some spectacular stuff to make to bring the different ideas for the environments to life on the tabletop.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Actually, you know, one thing that we actually need to start getting on top of is how we're going to implement all the Easter eggs. Because we need to get the supporters memorialized and, you know, kind of immortalized in the maps. Like, I want to see like very hard to find little Easter eggs. Like, you know, I want to find like, I want to go into the map and I want to scroll into this itty bitty terrain feature. Then I want to see like a moth on it, and on that little moth, it's gonna be Mothman. Like all kinds of little Easter eggs like that. For like all the supporters. It's definitely been incredible to watch. Like, I've been watching and reading, and I haven't had like as much time as I want to actually like look and direct a bit more. I think everybody's kind of picking up the slack pretty well on everyone's ends.
Oh yeah, everyone has a specific job on this. Just pretty much got marching orders on, okay, this needs to get done, you need to do this, you need to do that, meet back here when this is done, and we'll work on this part next, you know.
Yeah, and I just I want to see like more people in like that. I think that's one of the goals of mine, even though I just saw some updates just now. I just saw some updates that I really like and I really want to look into, but I just want to we need to have like multiple people with different types of experiences and like theories on how it can be done to just kind of collide and just collaborate on things. Having a lot of that is something that I think really help get these maps and things together that has not really been seen before. I was gonna point to something. I know that there was like some discussion going on as to like the physical traits of some of the Cirilla maps. Because Cirilla is basically like a cave world. Well, not a cave world, but
like I said, you have the topmost layer, which is just this desolate ice, and then and on that is peppered, you know, the remnants of this prison complex that has well, the rough survivors of that went in after, you know, exiting back out of the warp, or being within a warp storm, rather, I should say, that are fighting over the debris and, you know, what kind of hell they've been through in their generations, you know. So you have that on the surface. Next layer down, you got the cave systems and what may be lurking within there. And then below that, you got a whole tropical region that doesn't, you know, you wouldn't think would be on an ice ball, but it's, you know, been sheltered off and has all these weird geothermal, you know, lights. So
yeah. And I think Aladaris is just joining us here in our podcast time here. But
hey,
oh, you're doing podcast. Sorry.
Hi.
That's all right.
It's no worries. We'll edit this out. All right, I think that we should move on to another subject here. I think I wanted the supporters to get to know the Moth a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about like some of the things that you've worked on? Like, where does your narrative campaign creation background come from?
Well, it depends on how far back you want to go, but I mean, before Warhammer narrative stuff, I wrote and released a novel called Dark Worlds Project 31. I also did another novel that was on the history of the horror genre called Six Screams, and about the torture and slasher films, the 1970s to modern day, going into Saw and everything.
Yeah.
Sex Lies and Psychos was the name of it. And the I've worked in the horror genre, doing a podcast on that, to do with that, and going to conventions. So I was, always around, the story makers to do with horror and all that. When it came to writing narrative campaigns, like I said, I did the Planet of Blackstone right after the launch of Kill Team, the previous one, and got to really explore the idea of what is Blackstone, why these factions have an interest in it, and creating an overall narrative that really went deep into, some of the origins of uh, chaos and its association with the Blackstone, and also the War in Heaven stuff with the Necrons. And to me, that area of Warhammer lore has always been a real interest of mine, and it feels like it needs to be explored a bit more. So that's what I worked on with that. Now that said, I'm not saying one way or another if that will have an impact on the story currently going on, but you'll know going into this that I do like to dig up tidbits in the lore that maybe have been glossed over in recent years. So, if you're big time into Warhammer lore, like the stuff that doesn't get fleshed out but seems interesting, I'm in the same boat with you on that, and I want to try to explore that.
Well, that's a vast background of narrative stuff. I always knew you wrote novels. I just didn't know how many you actually got involved with. And
Yep. I
Oh,
have one novel, one short history book on cinema, a short film, a screenwriting credit, and then I've actually just had cameo appearances in a few different movies.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And and just so that our potential viewers are watching, you did make the War of Seven Fronts. That was you.
Yep. That was the metamorphosis of the planet of Blackstone. The idea of I wanted to have that planet at the end get tossed in the middle of another system, and I got to take the idea I had of that one world and expand it onto 6 other worlds for a total of 7.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I've been doing the narrative game for, like I said, since probably early 8th edition, and coming up with, custom rules and working with others to create these big projects. And so that's why I'm really excited to be working on this one to, see what I can do next with, especially with this new edition of Kill Team out. I want to see how I can integrate it with Warhammer and create something new and exciting for players.
Yeah, and you know that's always been kind of the goal, hasn't it? It's always been about like how we can expand what we're doing, and grow the amount of people playing with us, and then it's also just kind of been like, you know, what can we do to, you know, stimulate people so that they're active around here. And so you know, I can say like my part with the Cruxcast stuff is it has been a journey far past the realm of this year. So this getting this campaign together has been a painful errand that I've been trying to get accomplished for maybe going on 2 years. I might even go as far as to say 3. And, you know, I know my limitations, and I'm not a fantastical, whimsical writer like Moth. I don't have the insight to create a, you know, open-ended procedural campaign. But, you know, I know where I can find them. That's what my part in all this is, just kind of finding the people and you know, trying my best to get them to come in and just work on this. And so, you know, that's the best I can do.
I think, yeah, and you know, the two of us are just one part of an amazing team.
Right.
And I have to give major credit to everyone that's involved in this, including the playtesters. You know, this is very much a massive group project where everyone is having a voice involved in this, and I think we're gonna have a really terrific experience for everyone because of it.
Yeah, no, you know, even Aladaris is kind of stepping up to kind of get in to give input. But you know, like if we want to really like name people, like we have Megapack, who's been doing a fantastic job. We have Megapack actually is creating the maps currently, and he's being assisted by Saxophone and Homeless Penguin, yeah. And Carl as well has done some work on the maps. And Shades has been kind of doing a good job with, you know.
They've been my right-hand person on most of the campaign stuff. Anytime I come up with some new bit to the system, I immediately email them, you know, the copy of what I've changed, you know, get input immediately. You know, Shade has been just awesome.
Yeah, no, definitely. I feel like Shade is. So here's Shade of the Crusades. If you guys don't know who this is actually someone who's been running narrative campaigns of his own. He even has his own kind of separate Discord server, and all he does is like run like narrative campaigns. He does a Twitch stream. I think that is twitch.tv/Shade of the Crusade. Actually, I could check for us here. He's always posting it in our stream announcements, not stream announcements, but the community streams channel. So just in case if you guys want to check him out, you guys can go to that channel there, community streams, and get that link to his stuff. But yeah, he's got a lot of experience. He seems to know. He knows what kills campaigns. Like it sounds like he's experienced it. Like when you hear him talk, he's like, okay, don't do this because this happens. Don't do this because this happens. It seems like he's just done a lot of trial and error of the Crusade narrative stuff. So that's pretty interesting. But yeah, no, it's kind of like what you're saying, that you know, even the guys that are helping us with the map feedback, like it's been really being turned up. We have like over, I want to say 60, if not 60, we have 80 playtesters that are just here to test the maps, and will eventually kind of kind of pass them over to when the campaign rolls out, right? And we have our basic system. Like we'll have like a really solid kind of player base starting this thing, of people just dedicated to letting us know what is terrible.
Yeah, and that is very important to know. You know,
I think it's one of the more
it
important
sounds
things.
funny that we want to know what's terrible, but we do want to know because that helps us to make it unterrible.
I remember the argument that we had over relic stealing. Like, it was a big kind of argument on the balancing. You guys didn't see this, but this was like in the admin chat, and it was just like, oh, nope, relic stealing, nope, we can't do this relic stealing. You know the nightmare that could. And then it's like, hey man, let's talk about this. You know, what if we just limit it to this and this? So basically, it was just a heated discussion on one little part.
If you could bring this, if you could bring this mechanic to the game, and would it enhance it or wreck it?
If you guys see a flash poll, that's probably what's happening. Is like we're having a secret secret fight, and you know, we're trying to resolve it out. But that's a good thing. You want the people that are creating the campaign and like have a say in things to be having heated, passionate discussions. That means everybody's like really into it, and they want to really make sure everything is good, everything's perfect. So you guys take a look in that announcement channel for Crux Solaris in the category, and if you see a flash poll, just make sure that you're clicking on it and letting us know what you guys think.
You're settling an argument going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think we still have an unsettled argument about points versus power level. Like, is that a 50-50 still? Like, it's been a while.
I think it is. Where I come down, you know, if I'm game to do either one, I can adjust accordingly. I will say, I personally would like to try the power level thing because I've done points before and it's totally doable. Don't get me wrong. It's, you know, we can do that. But it does run into the issue of when you're trying to create like universal upgrades and stuff, that if you're going by points, you gotta have go through with a fine-tooth comb to make sure you got figured out every single angle you can on adding this to your game. While with power level, it's like, okay, it adds this much power level and it adds this many crusade points, and move on. You know, it's very modular. You know.
Right, with the power level.
So, because of that, I would personally like to try that out. Because again, the other stuff I've done before always hit points. And look, ultimately that might be the better solution. I'd love to continue the discussion on that. But again, I'm personally in the favor of power level, but I'd love to hear what you guys think, and I will, tailor this campaign to work with either one.
So I'm gonna actually point out a post, and this post was actually posted by one of our patrons. His name is Elijah Gutman. He says 40k is not just balanced around 2,000 points, although I can see how one can perceive it that way. That's how a tourney player who only takes the meta looks at this game, and it's a perspective that takes away from the personal responsibility of not using OP units and OP combos just because you have access to them. I've been playing 40k for almost 25 years. This game has never and will never be balanced without a deep human element. It's impossible with a dice game with multiple armies that work so differently. 40k can be balanced at any points level. It just requires people going, yeah, this unit's OP. Right now I won't use them. It requires some level of personal control. This isn't StarCraft or League of Legends where you can complain that the redacted won't stop using the only meta. This is 40k. You can only choose your opponent by looking at their army and going, yeah, that's an OP internet list. And you can spend the next 4 hours with your hand on your puts because I've got better things to do. Wow, that was a spicy comment. Like, that was really spicy.
Yeah.
That was more spicier than I imagined that. I remember that. That was like there was even some okay, but I get the gist of what he's saying, right? Like, you know, we are a narrative campaign. Like, we're out here trying to, you know, have fun, right? That's
it's a big argument that comes up in every narrative campaign. The second somebody starts winning, people start saying, "Well, they're being too competitive. This is supposed to be narrative." Well, I mean, yeah, that argument is true to a degree. People are supposed to play the story that they want over, you know, the most, uh, perfect list that can, you know, dominate any opponent. They're supposed to play what they, you know, want to play. But at the same time, you play to win. That's the point of playing
true.
the game, is you play to win.
Everybody wants to win.
And on top of that, you have, you know, we're still technically in the early stages of ninth edition. So you have a good chunk of the armies that have not been updated with rules to, you know, maximize the new edition. And because of that, every single time a new codex comes out, that army is now the new best army.
It's
You
true.
know, and it's just going to keep doing that until all of them are out and we start getting into, you know, the next stage of, you know, campaign books like they did with Psychic Awakening. You know, it's always going to keep tweaking it, but until you have actually, you know, full ninth edition updates to everyone, there's always going to be a faction that's left behind. So, you know, the point I'm getting is that, you know, because of that, there's always meta shifting. It's always going to be changing. And what is overpowered, you know, one week, the very next week could be, you know, just complete crap. You know, Iron Warriors back in 8th edition went through that.
Yeah.
You know, I love playing Iron Warriors before, you know, their, you know, mini decks came out. And when it came out, they became like the most powerful army on the table. And if you played them, everybody looked at you like, well, you jumped on the bandwagon because of how powerful they are. I was like, no, I was playing them when they were crap. You know, I mean, it, it you know, you're always going to have that. That's what I'm getting at. And that
I think
we
that
are actually trying to address it a little bit with a couple of game mechanics. I mentioned one of them earlier, that if you're doing well and controlling the planet, you may earn buffs and everything, but you're also going to earn the attention of the planetary forces that don't want, you know, something that's off-world, you know, controlling it.
I just wanted to reinforce your point as well. I mean, I'm just going to point out some things here that are really obvious. This is going to be, you guys already know, this is going to be open for anybody to join. Like, we are fully expecting like a 400, 500 player campaign here. All right? When you have that many players, you know people are bringing metagaming. And so we just have to decide, like, how, like, do we want to, you know, deal with the points thing and, you know, account for it, or do we just want to do power level? I mean, people are gonna just figure out what works best under those conditions. We'll just have a different meta that's
right. There's
separate.
always going to be a list that excels under power and not points, and other way around.
Do you think that we,
you know,
step in at any point in time to address any kind of craziness in this campaign? Like, if someone, let's just say that, I don't know, Eldars get updated, or Tau gets updated, or something gets updated, and has, like, a ridiculous, you know, amount of power, do we step in on that? Do you think we come in and impose some homebrew?
My view on it is don't change the actual codex. What you can do is make things like missions and so forth, then maybe that advantage isn't too much of an advantage. You can change the environment, but not their army. You know what I'm saying? That I think
So
I don't want to say like absolute no on it because here's an example. Uh, One of the rules that I currently have in the system is Primarchs are allowed to be used in this, but for narrative, you can't say they're actually that Primarch. It's a model that represents an incredibly powerful whatever from that group, be it Imperium or Chaos. But in addition to that, during the 2-week period that we were calling chapters in the campaign, you can only bring a Primarch on one of the story missions. We're not banning you from having it in your army list. You can still use it, but you're not going to be able to just rack up nonstop points by using that one model. And so that's a way. That's what I mean by you can change the mission and the environment of the campaign without messing with their codex and the rules of their army.
So really, what it sounds like is that if let's just say Tau gets an update and they become the T1 shooting army that nobody can deal with, what you're actually going to kind of see is maybe some changes in how we develop our maps. Like we'll look a little bit into that and be like, oh well, we can't have like these really nifty, crazy shooting lane maps because then Tau's gonna grapple over everything.
You're gonna see more dense. You're gonna see more dense terrain. You're gonna see if they have stuff that ignores dense, then you're gonna see special rules introduced that says, this terrain, rules that say ignore terrain cannot be applied to this, stuff like that. There might be balancing things done to maps and the campaign, but whenever possible, I try to avoid messing with the actual codex and everything because at that point we're putting out our own FAQs as fast as GW is, and they can get really hard to keep track of.
Yeah, that's true.
So whenever I can, if we can, we're gonna go to the campaign and the level design and try to adjust any issues that may come up that way.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that that's always going to be the solution, but that's going to be the solution we're going to try for 9 times out of 10.
It's exciting, I think. Just knowing that we can do stuff like that, you try your best, right? Like, try to do what you can without, as you say, editing or, messing with a codex. And I think it's going to be a healthier game because of it. And I totally already see.
The other thing, I was just real quick, I mentioned that another thing along those lines is, the use of bases, that we're bringing in from Kill Team. While we're modifying it, we're not actually changing any of the Kill Team rules associated with it. We're just adding an extra layer so that it also affects 40k and gives you some buffs on that. So again, it's we're not trying to break any of the mechanics that have been established. We're just trying to give you an extra layer of enhancement.
Right. Yeah. I was just gonna say is I totally see kind of like a group in our team that gets together to just kind of look and see what's happening in the overview. And are also taking a look at what's happening in the competitive meta and just kind of suggesting things for us to look at. And I think honestly that sets us apart. I've never.
I think that we're making the best campaign we can. We have a lot of people involved, and we have all of you to help us out to make it the best campaign possible. And I think we can get there with everyone's involvement.
I think so too. Actually, I I did read someone's comment on the whole power level versus points, but actually, I just remembered that a patron actually messaged me. His name is Joshua Krager, and he asks, "How does the name character rule work with name elites such as Catan shards?" So that's something we probably will get back
one
to
of
you
those
on.
things where, I mean, I don't want to give an official, statement until I've talked to others. Because again,
That's true.
I want to make sure this is a group effort that everyone has a voice in. Uh, but somebody brought up to me the idea of giving an artifact to a avatar of Cain, and but saying how can they level up and get an avatar, and battle traits and all that when they have the character keyword when it's an avatar of Cain. And kind of my answer at the time, and and what I'm currently sticking to, is that the way the rules are set up, I'm not going to mess with it. If that's the way that it's set up in the Crusade rules for them to be able to carry that stuff, then I'll let them do it. I have a feeling that that's probably going to be changed once we get some Craft World, official Crusade rules. But because it to me in the lore, an Avatar of Cain is a relic. If you're giving a relic, or putting a hat on a hat. It just doesn't feel right. In the lore. So, but I'm not going to mess with the rules. If that's the way it's set up in the rules for them to, proceed that way, then that's how it'll be. But I'm I'm pretty sure that as soon as we get some official Crusade rules going on with the Fresh World of Dari, that they probably are not going to be able to get battle traits and all that. They'll probably be treated the same way you would treat a swarm or something like that, where it's part of your Crusade force, but it's not going to be getting any kind of uh, that term just completely escaped my head for a moment. Battle traits. You're not going to get any battle traits or any war injuries, that kind of stuff.
I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I don't even know what this guy's talking about. Joshua Craig. I don't
It's
know.
all part of
That's
all part of the base crusade stuff.
and this is. I don't know. That's why I get the people that do know. And but it sounds like he's trying to do some power game in there. Maybe he's trying to get some Catan's, some special rules and relics and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, the Catan stuff is, the Catan are very, very powerful on a Necron list, and there is some stuff that can go on in certain games where, since it's a character, you can give it different stuff. But maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think you can, in the Crusade rules, give a Catan a battle trait or a relic or any of that stuff.
I mean,
Because it doesn't technically, I don't think it technically falls under the Necron dynasty. It's the same reason they can't be issued My Will Be Done and all that stuff, or get dynastic codes can't be applied to them either. They work with the Catan, or the Necrons work with the Catan and vice versa while they're enslaved. But they don't benefit on the tabletop from their ability.
Is this like a very difficult one? Like I'm sorry if I pitched one here out of the blue that was a little
No.
much.
I mean, I think I just want to make sure that because I haven't actually done a Crusade army with the Necrons. This is the other thing we're going to have to go through with a fine tooth, is to make sure that each faction is unique, crusade rules are addressed and that everything's going to run smoothly. Because, like I said, I want players, if they have the codex for the Necrons, they're going to be able to use their crusade force from that book, in this game. And they'll be able to use the various other game mechanics we offer along with it. We're not taking away from you, we're only giving you more. And so but yeah, off the top of my head, without looking it up because I don't have it on me, the Necron Codex, I don't think Catan can get that stuff anyway. And if that's the case, we're not gonna be adding that in our campaign either.
Okay. Well, I hope that answers your question, Joshua. If it doesn't, let me know. But I think it's.
And we will.
We'll
definitely address it.
It'll be readdressed. Like this is the first podcast, guys. This is the first podcast. This is. I'm not even gonna edit this. I'm not even gonna edit the Aladaris part. This is gonna be very raw, and we'll get your questions, and we'll. It seems like we need to discuss this and bring this up and make sure that it's nothing brutal can be done, and also that it's interpreted correctly.
I will say that a behind the scenes look is that it's very true, is that there are so many armies and the crusade rules are unique to every one of them. So with this, it's going to be we gotta make sure that we go over each of the unique little intricacies of which units can benefit from what within those crusade rules, and then making sure that it all gels with what we have set up. So, it's a lot of work. It's worth it.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of work.
Well, definitely.
So if we don't have an answer like immediately off the top of our heads, because we're literally juggling every single codex and supplement at the same time and trying to remember which one applies to which.
And then you have literally Kill Team as well.
Right,
to
which
be added.
just came out.
Like, oh goodness, that's a lot.
Yeah, I mean the fact that I'm going through the various Kill Team stuff and seeing that, in addition to the, bases that you set up, they each have their own, part of the base called strategic assets, which to begin with, I started off with just the core book, and I just got the Octaris expansion.
Yeah.
And going through that, I discovered, oh, hey, what do you know? Every faction also gets their own unique base, strategic assets that they can bring as well.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah, this is gonna be.
I mean, suddenly there's a whole bunch of stuff that's gonna be coming down the pipe. That's I'm gonna have to make sure it's balanced out and has the right, right way of working with the game without breaking the game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be one of those big old docs with a bunch of rules defined and all that. But that's what you guys are here for. You guys love it, and I mean, I'll try I did say I was gonna play in this one. We'll see how that goes for me. But I think
it's about the same plan as me.
I just want to, I just want some fun. I want some fun times. I want a big group of people. And there's a lot of stuff floating out there right now, and I've been dropping some hints and some previews. If you guys haven't been checking those out in the posts, I have been dropping some stuff. You guys could even look at the outline that we were talking about. However, don't rely too much on that because it's not everything that's in, and
it's a work in progress.
It's a big work in progress. You guys just got to see a little snippet of it. That's part of your perks as to supporting us here. But yeah, the goal is to be something good and stimulating, and I think we're gonna get there. It's no problem. We got this.
Yep, absolutely.
If you guys have questions that you want, I do have another question as well that just as soon as I said that, homebrew. People have been asking about homebrew. what is officially our position on homebrew? Like, are we actually going to support homebrew? What is?
Out the gate, no. Because again, talking about interreactions and everything, that special homebrew rules that haven't been vetted and everything can be difficult.
Yes.
Now that doesn't mean that we won't take something that we have either come up with ourselves, had submitted to us, or discovered on the web, and discover, hey, this could add a whole lot of dynamics to the game, and we end up bringing it in. I mean, in the past, I know there was a codex in 8th edition released for the Adeptus Arbite that I thought was really cool. It made them an interesting faction to play. It didn't make them, didn't make them really like overpowered. They weren't, pushovers either. But, it was a cool, addition. So in previous campaign, I went ahead and said, hey, we're putting Adeptus Arbites in as an option. People can play as them if they want and use this homebrew codex when using them. It's not out of the question, but
I couldn't think of. I really couldn't think of a worse community to try to make homebrew stuff for. I'm sorry, but like, if your thing is even remotely viable, you just like how much hate your stuff is gonna get. Like, if it doesn't even remotely play with everyone's like, popular headcanon thing. Like,
well, that's the other thing is, anytime you do homebrew, you're gonna run into people who want to play that and say, hey, this isn't strong enough. Hey, it's too weak. Yeah, and hey, this is gonna break everything. This is totally unfair. They get to use this, and I don't.
I don't think anybody
homebrew
knows.
Opens up a can of worms.
I don't think anybody knows how many damn times I have to break up a conversation about how female space marines will never be a thing. I have to like sit there and just get to the bottom of the big argument that everyone started cursing at each other on the server for, and then it just comes to some ridiculous thing about I want female space marines. You can't have female space marines, and it's like, dude, just leave them alone. You just I
everyone has their own very specific views on what is supposed to be established canon, and
it's brutal out there, man. Like, if you actually, I didn't know how bad Lore Discussion Channel was until I actually took a look.
Oh, wow.
And just saw the amount of toxicness and arguing that people do for hours and hours, and it's all about lore. It's just, and it's like, I just think about it, and it's just like, really, you want homebrew? Like, you want to start a real life fight in here? Like, I don't know, guys. I'm not saying that we don't want to support the homebrew. I'm just saying that, like, man, it just seems like,
it's like, I mean, there's controversy over a homebrew that was the fallen sisters of battle, ones that have succumbed to chaos. And then that has its own thing of people saying that could never happen. They never would fall to chaos. Well, then there's this story where, this sister did, but that doesn't count because she didn't know she had fallen. And it's like this whole thing of,
You know how butthurt the server would get if we added like a female space marine faction to the game?
It would
destroy us.
Yeah, it would be. It would be, the end of the campaign.
It would be the end of our server. It would be the end.
Yeah.
We would show up on like r/sig Marxism, and we'd be on grim dank memes, and it'd just be one of the most dramatic events. That's how crazy people care about their lore and their headcanons and their I honestly, I don't know.
I mean, dude, I'm a big comic book fan, and there's just in DC Comics, the established lore of Batman. What is the actual history of events that happen with his character, and this timeline, does this still count? Does this one count? How many years apart did this happen from this? And people get into huge arguments on that.
I
And
think
I mean,
ultimately, I think what it is it's the whole stuff, right? I think one of the reasons that our community specifically, and I'm talking about Warhammer 40k in general, as a community, is so butthurt. Why we're so butthurt is probably because we're super passionate. We're just super passionate.
Yeah, I mean, I love our community and how passionate we are about it.
I love.
We definitely are just, full auto, into this as far as, what's unique about Warhammer, and, you could argue Star Wars does it too and stuff, but I mean, we have we have books, we have animations now, and movies potentially. We have games, battle reports. The point being is that it's more than just a story. It's you know
A lot
we
of stuff.
experience it through painting and tons of stuff.
That's true. That's true. And so when you
It's
ask me,
it's a medium that does so many things.
when you ask me homebrew, I'm just like, we'll think about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll think about
There's
it.
a whole lot of there's just a whole lot of potential problems. It's not to say that there couldn't be something that comes up. It's like, oh wow, yeah, this is gonna be great to add.
I think
But
I'll
at the
just.
same time, we have to weigh the possibilities that somebody's not gonna, there could be one minor disagreement about adding it that spirals into a much larger one. So we have to
and
keep that in mind.
already, like, we're already like I actually talked to Aladaris a little bit about some of the perks that supporters are going to get in the campaign, and already, like, there's already been kind of like some controversial ones in there, like, custom factions,
Right, and that goes into the whole homebrew stuff, yeah.
It's like, oh, this is just supposed to be like an incentive for, supporters to come in and forge a big, story. And then it's like, stop right there. Stop right there. Which factions are going into this faction? Because you can't have Chaos and Space Marines, okay? And it's like, dude, is this, is this the story? No Chaos and Space Marines. And it's just like, oh god.
Yeah.
How are we gonna make it through? We don't know. We'll see. But I will promise you guys, for the next episode of this podcast, we'll have somebody else in there. Maybe.
Yeah, you don't want to hear me all the time.
I mean, I need to get good at this, right? Like, I'm not the greatest podcast host. So I've, it's a thing, right? We're trying to do this, and we're going to talk about things, and that's what this is about. This is about talking about things. We're talking about the Cruxcast stuff. And right now, you guys have nothing. You guys have nothing right now. We are just working on everything. That's all I can tell you. And we'll talk about those things that we're working on.
But it's going together nicely.
I am very excited about it. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah,
I think
me too.
Just the indication of all the feedback, I think that right now that's the biggest thing that speaks to me, is that we are channeling all of this attention and all of this work and all this effort through many people's eyes, and we're just getting a collection of feedback on things. I think that's going to be the ultimate driver on just what game we're actually playing here. I already said it before. I think one of our biggest attractions alone is going to be just the maps.
Yeah,
it's going to be just the maps.
I agree.
It's going to be like, oh, what maps are you guys playing on? Man, don't play on that. Play on the Cruxcast maps. Those are better, And that's what I see. But I think
Yeah.
we've got a juicy amount of information that we've kind of sorted. We kind of spoke about here, and so I think we might want to kind of wrap it up. Maybe some final thoughts on this, some final things. One thing I do want to see is a little bit more. I don't know. I want to see you guys talk about this. I like how some people were asking questions directly in the Patreon posts. Like, I am totally down for that. If you guys just drop like your thoughts on things in the Patreon posts, I will bring them here and I will present them. Like,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
we will talk
Again,
about
like I
those
said,
things.
we want you guys to be a part of this, you know?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And whether it's me who's doing like the more graphical side of things, who's doing the design and doing the marketing stuff, and or Mothman who's actually doing the groundwork on the whole campaign, the rules, the lore, all that. Or, you know, if it's our map makers, like you guys want to drop something about our maps, you know, maybe we can get Mega Packin' on the next podcast. I think we're gonna see Aldaris. It's gonna be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's gonna wrap that up for us. But yeah, tune in tomorrow. Not tomorrow. What? Bring this back
already.
we could do this on Tuesday, right? Tuesdays seem like really good days. I think Tuesdays work. Around this time is fantastic for me. We could even do it a little bit earlier too if you're feeling that. Just to kind of meet up a little bit. Maybe we can get some other people in. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for this podcast. Thank you guys very much for joining us for the Cruxcast 1. We will see you guys next time.
Yeah. Catch you later.
Goodbye, boys. Goodbye.